Hello, everyone, and welcome to Majority Rules. Got a very small group today. We went from filling up the whole box last time for our women's basketball coaching search episode. By the way, if you haven't watched that yet, it was amazing and the highest Majority Rules viewed YouTube that we've had yet. It's well worth your hour and a half. But anyway, there's just three of us today. So this is Majority Rules Season 1, Episode 26, I believe we are on now, which is pretty crazy that we've done that many episodes. This is a podcast about Mizzou Athletics Majority, which is Olympic sports athletes, and we have some Olympic sports updates for you today. I am your host, Karen Steger. I am the softball, swimming, and gymnastics beat writer, very professional gymnastics beat writer at rockmnation.com, and Olympic sports manager. Did I say that already? I don't know. It's been a long day. And then I'll have you guys introduce yourselves, say what you write about. And the question of the day is, Como is having some very nice weather right now. How will you be spending this nice weather week? Hopefully doing fun things, but I have a feeling that's not what you'll be doing. All right, Dylan.
All right, I'm going first. Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan Heinrich. I am the soccer and women's basketball writer here at Rock M Nation. Light episode from me. Just diving a little
and
bit.
Softball.
And softball. I do help a little bit with softball. So this week I will mostly be helping out with the women's basketball coaching search as we've continued to learn a couple things in the past week or so. As for the nice weather we have here in Como, it's wonderful. And so I'm going to spend all of it inside. I am doing some freelance camera operator work for the Misha State basketball tournaments, which, hey, I get to watch some good high school basketball and I get paid. Yeah. So I hope everyone goes and plays some beach volleyball on me. So I will be spending my time in Mizzou Arena.
And I'm Matthew Gustafson, the volleyball, wrestling, baseball, and spring football writer for Rock M Nation. I feel like I've got so many different ones that I need to take a breath in before I say them now.
You're the Matthew of all trades instead of the Jack of all trades.
Yeah. And I will probably be spending my free time doing homework. Have an exam tomorrow, so I'm going to do some studying for that. Have an assignment due Friday, work for that, and some other stuff. So, yeah, probably homework. But I'll try to get outside when I'm not doing homework, which hopefully it means that I'll be able to, get that done quickly, but you never know.
Is spring football practice, is there any going on this week? And is that outdoors?
I think there might be one Saturday. Don't completely quote me on that, but I think there's one Saturday, and then there might be 3 of them next week or the week
And
after.
baseball's away this week, aren't they?
Yep. Yeah, they're down in Baton Rouge. Okay.
I will be spending probably an hour on Friday at the softball game. And then I will be running home to cover my main focus, which is Mizzou Gymnastics, which I live, breathe, sleep, eat. It's just my life. But I will be at all of the softball games this weekend. But the weather's supposed to be nice, but it is going to be a bit more chilly. That press box might be a little cold. Yeah. But I'll try to walk around outside maybe while it's in the 70s. I walked over to Shakespeare's today, and it was delightful, and I didn't want to come back. I just wanted to stay outside forever. All right. Well, let's get into it with our in-season sports updates. And we are going to start with wrestling woes. We got a lot of not great updates this week in terms of losses. There's a
Yeah.
couple good spots with the wrestling, but we'll let Matthew get into that.
So wrestling with a historically bad performance in Tulsa, they end up finishing 8th at the Big 12 championships and qualify automatically at least just 3 wrestlers to move on to Philadelphia, starting with the 3 bright spots. Obviously, Keegan O'Toole winning his 3rd Big 12 title, goes 4-0, major decision, tech fall. By the way, that tech fall, 15-0 in 1 minute, 44 seconds, which is absurd. Major decision. And then highly anticipated match against Dean Hamady of Oklahoma State. He's down 4-0 heading into the 3rd period. He gets the escape from bottom, working towards his offense, senses an opening, goes in, gets at Hamady's leg. Hamady is kind of hopping around on one leg because O'Toole's got the other kind of suspended in the air, trips him for the takedown with about 15-20 seconds left, holds on to force overtime, and then gets that Big 12 title winning takedown in overtime. The other top wrestler for Mizzou, 165, Cam Steed, he made it to the finals at 165, loses a 2-0 decision to Peyton Hall, but he gets a tech fall major decision and then defeats the number 1 overall seed Terrell Barracklaw in a 6-3 decision in sudden victory. Cade Moore, 133. I said, which Cade are we going to get? We got the good Cade Moore during the first session.
That's good.
15-3 major decision over Yavin Caprella. In the second round, he goes up against the 1 seed Evan Frost of Iowa State and demolishes him in a 20-6 major decision. He goes 2-3 from there, though, and he ends up in 4th place, loses the 3rd place matchup 10-6. Now, that was the good. The bad. It was Gage Walker, went 1-2, does not place. Logan Joffrey, the 7 seed, goes 0-2, does not place.
He's one that's been hurt. He'd been hurt, though. He's coming back from
Joffrey?
Yeah.
I think he'd been hurt, but that was a while back now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He, though, has not looked the same since an injury last year against West Virginia. Now, whether that's lingering issues from the injury or it's just a mental thing or he just hasn't been wrestling as well, I'm not sure. But, one of those guys where he, several wrestlers this year for this team either did not progress from last year, they were stagnant, or they regressed. And Joffrey was one of those guys who either kind of stayed the same or regressed. And he misses the NCAA championships. Jesse Cassat, 197, goes 0-2, does not place, although he was not expected to place. And Seth Nitzel, this one was the shocker. The number 4 seed entering, he goes 0-2, does not place. Loses in a 6-3 decision in both matches. Juan Mora loses that decision. He had beaten Mora fairly recently and then loses to Andrew Blackburn Force, and that ends up costing him a spot in the NCAA championships. He was on the right side of the bubble entering Big 12s, goes 0-2, and eventually, as we find out today, does not get an automatic bid. Looking at some of the wrestlers who did, Josh Edmond, 6 seed, he went 0-2. He had a rough tournament, but he was the top-ranked wrestler that did not get an automatic bid. He receives an at-large bid to the NCAA championships. Jay Conway has been picking up some momentum these last couple of weeks, right? That big win in that ISU duel against Iowa State. He ends up finishing in 7th. He goes 3-2. Now, the interesting thing here was the Big 12 had 7 automatic bids at 157 entering the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened. They lost an automatic bid. So,
that's weird.
Conway winning the 7th place match, originally that would have given him an auto bid. Ends up that he didn't get one, but he ends up getting an at-large bid. So in the end, it didn't matter. He makes it into the NCAA championships. And finally, Colton Hawks, one of the best wrestlers this year for Mizzou. He ends up going 2-3. ends up finishing in 8th place, one outside of the spot needed to automatically qualify. Again, he was the highest rated wrestler at 184 to not get an auto bid, and so he receives an at-large bid to the NCAA championships. I said he did not look like himself in Tulsa. From what I was told, there was something that kind of happened with his leg, maybe some awkward contact to his leg in his first match. And I mean, you could tell he just wasn't able to use it effectively. People were scoring takedowns on him at will. When he was shooting, trying to generate offense on other wrestlers, it just was not working. So it was really clear something was off there. He was not himself. And I honestly would not put too much stock into his performance at the Big 12. So in the end, Mizzou ends up with 6 wrestlers at the NCAA championships, a stark departure from the 10 they had last season. And in fact, this is the lowest total of wrestlers that Mizzou will have at the NCAA championships since 2010, when the championships were in Omaha. In addition, I think it was 2005-06 was the last time that Mizzou finished 5th or lower in their conference championship. Mizzou finishing 5th that year. Back then, the Big 12 had 5 wrestling programs. So 5th was the lowest that you could finish.
So last.
Yes. Now, they didn't finish last year, but this goes to show you this was a historically poor performance from Mizzou Wrestling, who has usually gone to, Big 12s or the MAC championships and performed really, really well, usually meeting or exceeding expectations.
Man. Well, what are Keegan's odds like to win another national title?
He's the favorite.
At his new weight class.
He's the favorite. Yeah. He will, unless there's some shocking thing that happens, he will be the number 1 seed at 174. He's beaten, I believe, the 2nd and 3rd ranked wrestlers at the class. And
I was wondering about that.
A ton of top 10, top 15, top 20 guys. So getting that win over Hamady, it was pretty much either it would be him or Hamady that got the number 1 seed, and whoever won that match would be the one to get it.
I think it's pretty impressive that he basically was off for almost 2 months, and then due to whatever injury he had or whatever was going on there, and that he came back and at a new weight class and won a conference title.
Yeah.
Like, that's just crazy to me that he is that dominant.
And I think that it's one of the things that, is a benefit of him moving up a weight class is when you have to, naturally cut less weight, it's just going to have, less health complications, less, potential for health issues for you. And I think that, when you're not having to cut as much weight, then it's going to help you when you're returning from an injury.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Matthew. Now we will go on to softball, which I affectionately have called softball snafus. So we have wrestling woes and softball snafus. Because, you guys, Mizzou opened SEC play. With how many wins did they get, Dylan?
0.
A big goose egg. They were swept by Kentucky. And though they did plate 14 runs across 3 games, not bad. They lost all 3 games. Why?
I mean,
why?
Like you said, pitching has been continuing struggles. I mean, you don't give up double-digit runs, but 6, 5, and 9 in those 3 games. And as a result, you're not going to be able to stockpile a lot of runs, especially in the SEC. So when you're constantly giving up, like you mentioned, 6 to 9 runs, you're not going to win a lot of games. And it's also because the other team is scoring in bunches. They're scoring 3 to 4 runs in an inning. I told you this, instead of death by 1,000 cuts, it's just death by explosion. Like, it's one big smack and it's all over.
I think in my game 1 recap, I titled that heading "Death by 1,000 Cuts (parentheses runs."
Yeah, it's just the home runs with the rise ball pitchers between McCann and Harrison. Like, it's to be expected, but it doesn't mean that it hurts every single time one is smacked over the fence, especially those 2-3-run home runs that are still giving the Tigers trouble. So, like you said, the offense looked pretty good. It kept them in all 3 of these games. It's tough to win at all on the road in the SEC, but against a team that is in the lower half of the conference, a team that preseason you were expecting to win this series, not even getting one, real big disappointment for softball.
Yeah, because like I had written in my preview that like Mizzou was like basically at the bottom of every category. And Kentucky was like pretty much like right above them. So like we're talking about 2 teams that were pretty evenly matched in not being the best thus far. And it just I'm not jumping to any sort of conclusions or anything, but it did make me wonder, like, there's a possibility that they don't win any series. There is a possibility. It's not likely, but you have to wonder if you can't even take one game from Kentucky, who is a team that is very similar to you. It does make me wonder.
I will say, coming home to these home atmospheres,
yes,
maybe it's not going to be the biggest difference maker against an Oklahoma or a Texas, but some of these middle tier SEC teams, they're not going to be easy outs, but I would be very shocked if Mizzou doesn't take at least one series from their SEC opponents. It might be another down year, bottom half of the SEC, definitely not hosting a super, probably not hosting a regional, but I mean, I don't think it's doomed to give up all hope on this season again.
Oh yeah, I'm not doing that.
The most important thing is to get to postseason. So I think it's all about going through the motions, making sure that this team is still making progress in the right direction, because they still have a lot of young players that still have a lot of room to grow even within this season. So I would say don't hit the panic button just yet. Yeah, it's been ugly so far. It could continue to be ugly against teams like Oklahoma, against teams like Texas. But if you want a nice little rebound series, you probably have the best option coming up with this Mizzou Invitational.
I agree. And we asked that in the press conference. So I have a bunch of notes that I took from the press conference, and then my takeaways piece is also going to be like part takeaways, part whatever Larissa said in the press conference, and then mini preview, because I don't have time to write a giant in-depth preview of however many teams Mizzou's facing this weekend. Now I lost my train of thought. Oh, Larissa said at the press conference that, you know, they played like 25 games now, and every single one has been away from Mizzou softball stadium. And in that time, how many practices do you think that they have had at their home field since the season started? How many do you think they've had?
12.
6.
3.
Yeah.
3. They have had 3 practices at home. So somebody had asked, like, well, you're getting a bit of a reprieve this weekend. You know, you're getting a little, you can rest a little bit knowing you're not facing SEC competition again. And she said she doesn't even care about that. She said the big thing is that they're home. That she's just so excited. You know, the weather's supposed to be nice this week, so they can practice outside on their own dirt, at their own fields. They can sleep in their own beds. They are at home in front of their own fans. Like, it's just a completely different atmosphere. So she is the most excited about that, about actually getting to play at Mizzou Softball Stadium in front of their fans, and they're home again.
Yeah.
So something that she brought up the last couple times too is the problem is that she divides the games into three facets: pitching, defense, offense. They really only have like 1.5 facets working now. The defense, which I was scared to death, I almost said a bad word, about earlier in this season, is coming together quite nicely. That is getting much better the more reps that they're getting, and now that she's kind of figured out where people are going to be playing. The pitching, obviously, I mean, that was like the first thing she said was, I am disappointed in the pitching. There are not a lot of swings and misses. And then the offense, she said that them being able to come back in games, awesome. Like she talked about Sunday specifically, about how, I mean, they got down by so much. They were down like 9-3, and I was like, F this, I'm turning it off, and I'm going to rewatch the gymnastics meet, because I was like, I'm not doing this to myself. And then like my parents kept watching, and they were texting me, and my mom's like, hey, they got a home run. Hey, they scored some runs. And then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I need to turn it back on. And they started to come back, and they got it to what, 9-6. But then Larissa said, like, so they had a runner in scoring position with 1 out or no outs, and then they just couldn't do anything. And she said that's the problem. Like, they're stranding runners on base left and right because it's almost like they're panicking instead of getting back to how, like, remembering the type of player they are and the pitches that they're looking for. It's like they're like, oh my God, there's a runner on. I have to get that person home because now we're behind. And then they just like freak out and barely hit the ball or strike out or hit it. You know, an infield pop-up. There's so many infield pop-ups that, yeah, it sucks. So she's like, they have the potential to be very strong offensively, but they have to learn to get the hits at the right time, and they're just not there yet. On the bright side, she did mention Abby Hay. Thank God. Abby Hay's slump appears to be over. Sunday she hit a double into the wall and had a home run. And Larissa described her other outs that she had as loud outs. So it wasn't like she wasn't just fading into the background and striking out like she had been doing. Or if even when she wasn't getting on base with a hit, she had some walks. So she was like, she started to see the old Abby in her. So that's promising. She also talked about Claire Cahalan and how impressed she's been with how she's doing. Because last year, you know, she was kind of one-dimensional. She was a slap hitter. She's not so much as that anymore. And she talked about how hard she's worked, and how she has taught herself how to hit into the gaps. And she's not one that Larissa wanted to make sure that she pointed out that, like, she's not one that they pinch hit forever. Like, Tiny Claire is in the game. She is not going to be pinch hit for, because she brings something to the table. What else did she say? She said that freshman Madison Updegrove, Tolton High School, Columbia, Missouri native. She deserves a lot of recognition. She thought that she had some really great at-bats. one of the games, must have been Sunday too. She was on base every single at bat. I was like in and out of watching that game too because of gymnastics before that. As for the pitching, good God. Good God. Somebody asked about what's going on with Taylor Pinnell. Like why, she was unstoppable last year and people they're getting her this year. And they just said that basically that the word's out on her. The word's out on Taylor Pinnell. She has to be able to counterattack. She's only throwing to one side of the plate. And especially against Kentucky with the right-handed pitchers, she needs to throw her curveball tight on the hands of the right-handed players, not pitchers, right-handed batters, and she's not doing that. So that is what her problem is. Nobody asked about CC that I could hear. Yeah, so it's not good. It's not good. They got to get it together. So this weekend they face on Thursday? Thursday's Princeton and
South
Dakota State, who they've already played and beat.
They love scheduling South Dakota State. Like,
no, it's so weird. Like, how random.
They always play. I think that was the double no-hitter game too last year. So it was either them or
yeah. And then Friday's in Michigan.
Yes.
Saturday is
good old Quinnipiac.
Oh yeah. I feel like that's like Quentin's favorite team. Like he loves to talk about Quinnipiac. I don't know if it's the name. I don't know their conference. Like he's a big Quinnipiac guy.
And then it's not technically a part of the Mizzou softball tournament, but they have their makeup game against Kansas City on Sunday.
The makeup game against Kansas City. So I am hoping for just a bunch of runs. It's a chance to get their pitching back together.
I'm sure that's what LA is going to tell you or probably told people on Monday is that, yes, the wins are going to be helpful, but more so it's the process that you want to see from softball. I
don't even care about the wins. Well, they need to win. Obviously, you can't be losing any of those teams. Like Michigan's pretty good, I think, but I don't think any of the other ones are.
Does the hitting look good? Are they making fielding errors? Like, as long as they're playing good, solid softball, they should go, I believe, what's that, 5-0? Yeah, 5-0 against those teams if they stay within themselves and play their game. So I think that should be the main focus.
Yeah. Oh, and she also said something about Natalie Touche. Somebody, I think she brought her up, that she likes her because she brings something different than every other pitcher on the staff. She describes her as which we've seen, describes her as a ball of energy. She keeps herself at like an 8 or 9 on a 1 to 10 scale of energy, and that's where she like needs to keep herself at. And she came in for 2 innings on Sunday. The first inning, she was all over the place. Larissa said she thought she was a little too aggressive. She had a little too much adrenaline. She was probably a 12 instead of an 8 or 9. But then in her second inning of work, her changeup was effective. She did much better at the lower end of the zone, and she did. Her second inning was much better. And Larissa actually talked about that a lot, about managing the team's levels of regulating themselves. Like, they need to figure out what level they perform the best at. So, like, Natalie may be an 8 or a 9, but somebody else may be a 4. And she said the hardest thing is like trying to simulate what that's going to be like when you come into a game. Like, how do I make sure I'm at that level when like she'd been sitting on the bench the entire game? How does she make sure that when she comes in, she's at an 8 or a 9 and not a 600? So that'll be interesting to see, I think. I don't know if I really have anything else about softball. And now we've lost Matthew about baseball. I don't know entirely. I know they split the series with Binghamton. Noted baseball powerhouse, Binghamton, right?
Are they?
No, I was being facetious.
I
Binghamton
figured.
is
I was
not.
like, you're really testing my baseball knowledge, Karen. Oh my goodness.
They are not a team that the Missouri Tigers, the Division I SEC baseball team, should be losing to.
Twice.
And yet they did. Yeah, twice. Friday and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Mizzou did take the doubleheader. I think one of the games they scored 16 runs. The other one was closer. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I can't say I've followed the team thoroughly, but it seems to be pitching is a major concern. Sometimes you can't
injuries.
Get injuries, can't get the bats going in key situations, and so
Yeah.
this is less than promising results heading into SEC play. Like Matthew mentioned, now they have to head to LSU, which I would say if they can keep it close in a couple of those games, you feel better about this team. But if they're just going to get blown out, then you start to really raise some major, major red flags. But I would say, again, it's hard to win at LSU. Just focus on not letting the game get away from you.
Yeah. I'd read his recap and I was trying to remember some more specifics behind it, but basically, you basically just said it, and I think they have injuries to like 4 different players right now that they desperately need, and it's not going well. It's not going well in the windiest stadium in Columbia.
Hey guys, I wish I could join the entire show, but for now, I will just be giving you my NCAA Indoor Championships preview. My name is Abigail Klaptowskis. I'm the track and field and cross country beat reporter. Let's dive right in. Mizzou is going to be sending several athletes to the championships this weekend. The championships are taking place this Friday and Saturday in Virginia Beach, Virginia. On Friday, Sam Innes will compete in the men's weight throw at 6:05 p.m. He is currently seeded 13 of 16 athletes in the field. Every single event just takes the top 16 athletes ranked nationally. Makes it super easy to calculate. Then on Saturday, we kick into the entire jumps crew. Claudina Diaz and Christy Perez-Sneeman will compete at noon in the women's high jump. Diaz is ranked 16th and Christy is seeded 9th. And then in the afternoon, Effany Andre will compete in the women's triple jump at 2:20 p.m. Finally, the marquee event for the Missouri Tigers will take place at 5:20 p.m. during the men's triple jump. Jonathan Srime who is ranked top in the nation, 1 of 16 in his field, will compete alongside his teammate Sterling Scott in the men's triple jump. Sterling is seeded 8th. Srime still is receiving votes on the Bowerman watch list. He remains the only male triple jump athlete to do so. It's going to be a super exciting weekend. I will send you all of the updates on Rock M, and that's all I got. Back to you guys.
You know where it is going well, Dylan?
Where is it going well?
At the Hearn Center.
Oh, yeah.
Home of our Mizzou Gymnastics team, who, for the first time in team history, the wins and losses don't matter, was undefeated at home. So I don't care about the wins and losses. I don't care. But it's still really cool when you think about the mighty SEC that Mizzou finished their season, their regular season home meets at Hearns undefeated.
And
and
good.
What?
It also shows that they can like rise to the occasion of their opponents. Like when you
Oh,
are
yeah.
competing, like obviously this was on the road, but when you're competing against teams like Oklahoma and Florida and you're able to get those consistent high scores, and then you come back to Hearns and you're getting those high scores still, I mean,
Yeah.
feels like the ceiling is the limit for this team.
Yeah. Well, because, we didn't have a regular podcast last week, so we didn't talk about the Florida meet. I mean, they went on the road to the swamp to exact Stephen F. O'Connell Center or whatever the hell it's called. And in front of, 13,000 people. I mean, it was sold out arena that my parents were at. Large Mizzou contingent, my parents said. They were in 2 different sections. There were so many of them. They put up a 197.725, which was the second highest score in school history until this week. And we're just freaking phenomenal, and should have been better than that because they got underscored on some stuff and Florida got overscored on some stuff. But that is to be expected because that happens at Florida, to Florida, no matter where they are, home or on the road. Very overscored. But I digress. Back to the important information at hand, which was this past weekend, senior night. Sunday, well, senior day, because the meet was at noon. Senior day at Hearns. Mizzou honored 8 seniors. 8. Some of them could come back. I'm specifically eyeing Lauren McPherson, who was out. Grad transfer from San Jose State, who was out with an Achilles tear that she never got into a regular season meet. I wouldn't be surprised if she's back. I'm not sure about any of the others. And when we tried to ask Shannon about it, because he did say at the end of the meet, some of these people maybe they're not done. We tried to get it out of him, and he was like, no, we're not going to talk about that right now.
Dangle it in front of you.
We still have a season ahead of us that we don't need to go there yet. And we're like, okay, fair. But it was what a meet. So quickly go through it. Vault for the second week in a row. Tigers put up a 49.375. It doesn't sound like a good score, but when I looked at Road to Nationals and compared it to the other high scores around the country, it's actually the 9th highest score in the country.
Wow.
Which is kind of insane because a 49.375 doesn't, especially when you compare it to Mizzou's other scores, it seems just it's an okay score. I mean, their program high is a 49.5. So they're still a bit off of that. And if they had a 49.5 right now, they'd probably be top 3 in the country. Vault, the other scores are slowly coming back to, they're giving out 10s, they're giving out higher scores. Vault is not doing that still. They are judging Vault much more harshly. There is still only one person in all of NCAA who got a 10. That was Selena Harris Miranda at Florida. It wasn't a 10. She got a 10 though. So Jocelyn's 9.975 from earlier in the season is still the second highest. She's with 6 other people for the second highest score in the country because only one person has gotten a 10 so far this season. Jade Carey has deserved a 10 this season. She consistently is the most unbelievable vaults. Justice for Jade Carey. And then justice for Jocelyn Moore, who should also have a 10.
Very true.
But anyway, so yes, that was good. Moving on from there. Bars. Season high score. Just this much from the program high. one stuck landing away from tying their program high score. They got a 49.575, which was the season high. Kira Burns led off final bars routine at Hearn Center, 9925 career high. Pretty awesome. Jocelyn Moore in the 3 spot. Her previous high was a 9925 from 2 years ago. She got a 995. It was incredible. Olivia Kelly, just a freshman, she had a career high 9875. Mara tied her 995 season high. I don't know why she didn't get a 10. I went back and rewatched that meet, and the announcers were so confused too. They're like, I don't know where you took these deductions. And because she got a 10, or she got a 995, because one judge gave her a 10 and one judge gave her a 99. And there was nowhere in there that where you could get a 10th deduction from. It was crazy. And Amari had a 9875, which was, she had a 995 last week. I only bring her up because she was underscored. She was robbed. They said it on the broadcast too. This is not just Karen being a homer. Like, I don't know where the deductions came from that one judge gave her a 985. So that was awesome. Beam, another season high score. They're still a little bit behind. I think the program high is like a 49.55, and they got a 49.45. So they're a 10th from their program high on beam. And really, you can make that up with Helen, because she was good, but she had a wobble and got a 9.9. Like, she takes away that wobble because she's normally like crazy no wobbles. I mean, I don't know. That's so technical, I know. Like, she's normally like no wobbles, like sure-footed as can be. They'll easily get a program high in that. So for that, Olivia Kelly, again, a freshman trying to show up her seniors, I guess, by getting career highs. She tied her career high 9.9. Amari tied her season high 9.875. They said on the broadcast when I rewatched it that she should have gotten at least a 9.9 and not, if not higher than that. So screwed her again on another apparatus. Rude. Addison Lawrence 9.925. That was her season high. I think she is each week, she's just inching closer and closer to getting back to her freshman year 9.975, because she looked absolutely incredible. She did a phenomenal job. I already said Helen at a 9.9, so that was excellent again. And then there was, so like Nate and I are sitting there like freaking out because we're like, okay, they get a 49.6. Well, actually, they only needed a 49.45 to tie their previous program high, which was 197.85. And we're like, whatever, they can do that in their sleep. Like, that is a 49.45 on floor for this group is like nothing. Like, what happened? They needed a 49.6 to get a 198.0. We got a little nervous at first because Elise had a little mistake where Nate explained it to me, because I don't think you would have known from the naked eye that something weird had happened, and they didn't even really talk about it on the broadcast either. It was like she thought she was going to be short. She knew like she didn't get enough height, so instead of her landing on her first pass should have been a layout, so she should have been like in the straight position and flipping in this like this. But because she didn't have enough height to do that, she did a front tuck instead, so like a somersault. So she only, that took down her start value, I guess. So she only got a 9.75. So we're like, oh no, like what's gonna happen? Don't worry, guys. Don't worry. Because Hannah had it. Hannah tied her season high 9.925. Beautiful. Raina, my girl, 9.925 career high. She's just a sophomore, so she'll be back next year. So excited. Also, hers was really interesting because her last pass, she took like an enormous lunge back, and you can take a lunge, like you don't have to land, straight up and down. You can lunge back, but what you can't do is lift your front foot. You can't slide your front foot. You can't do anything with your front foot. It has to stay it has to be stuck there. And it didn't matter how her lunge was huge. She did not move that front foot at all. 9.925 for Raina. That was awesome. My Amari, I started crying. I don't know if it was because I was just so happy she got a 9.975, which ties her career high, but then her breaking down at the end, knowing this is her last routine at Hearns, and she did so well, and the team all running out there to her, just I'm just sitting there at the media table, just no, it's fine. I'm professional. I mean, at no point was I just oh my God, buckets of tears coming down. But yeah. Oh, so good. So 9.975 for her. Kennedy got a 9.925. And the thing that was kind of weird about that was that Nate and I kind of looked at each other and we were like, so she got a 9.925 on that. And I actually think that routine looked better than the one that she got a 10 on at Zoo to the Lou. So, yeah. I agreed with the 10 when she got it, but this looked even more like a 10 than when she actually got it, and then she got even less score. And then needing just a 9.85 to secure the 198, Jocelyn Moore, final floor routine at Hearn Center of her career, 9.95. Which tied her season high for the year. Tigers get a 198.1. Just started crying when that, I just was Nate and I are sitting there holding each other's arms and going I can't believe this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. I can't believe this is going to happen. Oh my God. We're just freaking out over there. Just fantastic. The sky's the limit for this team. And I was talking to one of my friends who works for Claire, who does some production and research work for ESPN. And she said, it wasn't favoritism scoring. You could make a case for each of the scores that Mizzou got, maybe a 10th here or there. Helen, I thought there was a chance that she could have gone a little bit. She could have gone 9.875. Or there was somebody else that it was okay, maybe they give him a 10th. But they killed it. They killed it. It was
Just
awesome.
ridiculous meet. It was incredible.
Sky's the limit. I heard that you and Grace had some sort of bet on what you thought that the score was going to be.
So
Talk to me about that.
I will tell the story. So I was talking to Grace Anger, lovely contributor for KOMU 8 News. We were working basketball the day before and we're setting up
gymnastics enthusiast.
Yes,
Grace
gymnastics
Anger.
enthusiast. Knows her stuff. She told me Mizzou was going to get a 198 on Sunday, and I was being a little facetious, but I was like, oh, it's not going to happen. It hasn't happened yet in program history. Just for the most part, it was mostly just messing with her. And I was like, I was willing to bet her on it, but she never shook my hand. So now she's coming back to me saying I owe her $5, but she never shook my hand. So Grace, if you're for some reason listening to this, I do not owe you $5. Let's make that a.
I don't owe you crap, Grace.
You have to shake your hand. It's common law when it comes to bets. Otherwise, it's not official. It's null and void. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules.
Okay.
But okay. I will say I was ecstatic.
Well, my preview, I said I thought if they could get 197 last week when it probably should have been 197.7 last week when it probably should have been even higher than that. And there were just tiny things that they just needed to fix. I thought that there was no reason in the world why they couldn't get a program high, so at least a 197.85. And I had predicted a 197.9 or a 198.0. So I was pretty close.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, do we think they can keep improving on these scores too? Like, do you think there's any chance they hit 198.2 as we get to SECs and regionals?
So I'd like to see how they do next week or this week, Friday, at Bud Walton Arena, which Arkansas has beaten 2 top 3 teams this year. But I'm not really scared about going to, and also the win and loss thing it literally doesn't matter. It's more the score. I'm not afraid of that environment for Mizzou because, like, they've already been at PMAC and been at LSU. They've been to the O-Dome and faced Oklahoma there. They were just at Stephen O'Connell last week at Florida. Like, they've already been at these really tough environments and gotten it together and performed. And, oh yeah, Mizzou's former program high, the 197.85, was set the last time they were at Arkansas. So I'm in that, and this team's better than that team. That team was good, but this team's better than that team. So I'm betting they can get at least 197.85 again. And then, so the difference, the other reason why they need to get a high score is to cement their place in the top 4 in the SEC so that they're in the evening session of the SEC championships. Because blah, 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 coaching, judging subjectivity aside, we know that's not true. Judging from the fact that Mizzou has always been in the first session and has always gotten underscored as well as any other team that is in that first session. It's like they save the real good stuff for those people in the night session. Damn it, Mizzou's going to be in the night session, and they're going to benefit from those scores. But the thing also with SEC championships and regionals and stuff like that, they're not likely to get a 198 at one of those because there's some more judges. There's 6 judges. They take out the high and the low and they count the middle 4, I think, is how they do it. So typically the scores go down a little bit. So like Mizzou got this 198.1 now, they're not likely to get that. But at that point, like once they get to regionals, the score doesn't even matter. Like that's when the place matters. Like they need to finish in the top 4 or the top 2 of their region, so then they can move on to nationals. And then it's just like it's all fair game. So I'm super excited for Mizzou Gymnastics. I love this team so much. They're just, I mean, you've been there, like just a joy.
Yeah,
The staff, the team, just like a joy to be around.
I was working for the ESPN crew or the SEC Network crew for the Auburn meet, and so they finally find out that they get the 198 at the end of the meet, and they're all going nuts on the floor, and we get our camera guy in there, and I'm just kind of sitting there watching all the gymnasts. I'm like, wow, this is a special program. Like, that was one of the coolest memories I've had at Mizzou, like up there with like storming the court. There we go. Storming the field in like LSU gym last year. Like, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. It's so good to be back on Majority Rules, even if I'm not with the squad technically right now, but I'm here to give you updates on a couple different sports. So let's start with women's golf. Fionn collected her 3rd top 10 finish of the season, which is the 4th of her collegiate career. So huge props to her. She took 7th place in the Mountain View Collegiate in Arizona. Conditions were pretty tough over the final 2 days of the season that just affected the course and the players altogether, but didn't phase her, didn't phase our star. 77 golfers participated in this entire tournament, and Mizzou had 4 Tigers in that top 50. They finished right in the middle of the pack, taking 7th place out of 14 teams. They even finished ahead of number 55, the University of Miami. So it's great. Like, again, we've brought it up a couple times, but when we were at the end of the fall season, just how much this team had progressed over the year and what they were able to do and how it was unlike any seasons recently in the last couple of years. So great to see them still out to that hot start towards still in spring season, which I'm really excited about for them. Moving into men's golf, Virgilio Paz secured his 3rd all-time top 10 finish of his collegiate career, coming in 8th place at the Carlton River Challenge. Paz felt really accomplished with the outcome. He said he struck the ball well, did a great job staying patient, and was happy with his top 10 finish, and it motivates him to keep working hard and improving for the future. Mizzou finished 11th in a field of 16 teams, and they will head to South Carolina starting on March 16th for the General Hacker Invitational. Moving into tennis, after strong starts of the season, after I made Dylan bring out the brooms just a short couple weeks ago, it's been tough for the Tigers in conference play, but still a positive to think about. They are still nationally ranked at 69. This past weekend, they dropped 2 of their matches to Arkansas and number 14 Oklahoma. They were swept by Oklahoma by a score of 4-0. But 4 of their 6 singles matches were against nationally ranked opponents. And then they fell to Arkansas by a score of 4-1. They dropped both doubles matches, but they got their win from freshman Karina Rosso, who I've talked about in the past. She's a bright spot on this team. Can't wait to see what she does. And then they announced a signing of Alex Ackman, who is a 5-star by Tennis Recruiting Network. She currently ranks 59th nationally and 11th in the state of California. Switching gears again, let's get into swim and dive. About a week ago, the Tigers hosted the Mizzou qualifier, basically just to improve individual times and try and qualify for the NCAA championships. Huge time improvements and personal best happened at this meet, and Mizzou was able to announce 6 women's swimmers that were able to qualify for the NCAA championships. Zara Zalen, Carolina Bank, Grace Hansen, Katie Kuhn, Sierra Smith, and Sydney Bales. They will be going to Washington starting the 19th, and then the men don't start their tournament until March 26th.
And we're still waiting on finding out exactly which of the men have qualified, both for swim and dive. That should be coming out really shortly. That it's a whole crazy thing that they have to go in and look at everything. Moving on to diving, they are in the Zone D Diving Championships in Iowa City, Iowa. Currently, we've had 3 tickets punched to the NCAA championship so far. Collier Dyer is going to represent the Tigers in the 1 and 3 meter, while Megan Jolly will be in the 3 meter. Gabrielle San Juan Cremona also made it to the finals of the Zone D diving championships, but it wasn't enough to put her in the NCAAs. She finished in 13th place with a score of 619.6, where Megan Jolly finished 7th and had a score of 635 flat. So that will continue. They have yet to do platform, I believe. So stay tuned for updates on that. And if the Tigers get any more tickets punched, they have 4 representatives on the men's side with Deacon Colbert, Derek Colbert, Collier Dyer, and Tommaso Zanella. And the women also have 4 divers: Mia Henninger, Megan Jolly, Olivia Little, and Gabriela San Juan. Again, they will be in Washington for the NCAAs at the same time as swim. So the women will be there March 19th through 22nd, and the men will be there March 26th through 29. And stay tuned for updates, both on the diving side of things, if anyone continues to qualify for the NCAAs, and just for men's swim and who will be there shortly.
Okay, so last thing we have to talk about. I guess this is technically an out-of-season sport.
Yes.
Now, well, for Mizzou anyway, not for the better teams. Let's get a little bit of updates on the women's hoop search based on what we've heard.
Yes. So Laird Veach gave a press conference on last Friday. So that would have been after we released.
Oh, yeah, that was after we recorded.
So basically, he went through all what he's looking for in coaching candidates, and there wasn't a huge amount, but the biggest takeaways really are that they're willing to spend a lot of money. They're casting a wide net, and they're trying to keep it to a small circle, but that doesn't mean that we've heard a bunch of rumors. And so for what my approach and a lot of others have been is very much tailored toward the mid-major level, which is, of course, where they got Dennis Gates in years past. Looks like they're trying to poach some other Power 5 coaches.
Yeah.
And so the list that I've seen thrown around has been Jeff Mitty from Kansas State.
Kansas State, who we barely talked about because
Yes.
I just assumed that he was not actually going to be.
I mean, K-State he's like they're a 4 seed this year. They went on a run in the Big 12. He's been there forever, but he is a Missouri native.
Just signed a contract extension, good through 28-29.
Yeah. He is a Missouri native, and of course he's worked a lot with Veach in the past, so maybe there is enough money to kind of take him away from Manhattan and back to the Show Me State. Other candidates are Beth Cunningham, who we didn't talk about a lot, but from Mo State. Had a couple really successful years there, a couple really good years at VCU. I got a feeling a lot of that is just simply due to proximity in Springfield, and if you wanted to, it'd be really easy to bring her in for an interview.
Well, and with her
Here's a
too,
we'll say.
so the reason why she wasn't on your list was that she hadn't been to the tournament, right? Like she's been WNIT
Not
and stuff
much.
like that,
She went to
but
one
not any NCAA
VCU.
tournament experience or just one time or something like that, right?
I think she hasn't been with Mo State yet, but she was at VCU, so I didn't go back and check previous jobs.
Yeah, because she does have power. Is it 4? Power 4 experience. She does have high major experience with like Notre Dame. I think
Yes.
she might have been the one that was she at Duke too.
I know she was
VCU.
definitely at Notre Dame.
Yeah. So she's definitely been at like some bigger programs. I'm like can't remember now off the top of
Yeah,
my
it was
head.
Notre Dame and Duke as an assistant for a couple years. Also played in the W, so
Yeah, so
an experience.
she's one we didn't really like. We gave a passing mention to. I feel like.
Yeah, which you
And
called.
then who else did they say?
Molly Miller, which, of course, we will.
The top
say-
of everyone's board. She's on track to be the head coach at like every university that got rid of their coach, it appears. Sources say
I've
she
seen
will be the head coach at probably 8 universities next year. So best of luck to her.
Yeah, I've seen people put out Arizona State and Arkansas specifically, and everyone has talked about it with Mizzou for the longest time. So it feels like she is in line for a Power 4 job now. It's just really a question of where. So, but she's definitely in the mix.
Mhm.
Other candidates include Sharman Smith, the current head coach of Cal, which we touched on briefly. St. Louis native,
St.
again,
Louis native Matthew brought her up.
a very much a type of coach who is she still in the Power 4, but the travel of the ACC for Cal is a real pain.
Oh my God, I'd want to get out of that so bad.
She's
Just thinking about it just makes me tired.
she's probably going to make a bunch more money if she does come to Mizzou. Recruiting, obviously, in the Bay Area is good, but getting to recruit back in St. Louis would be a layup, no pun intended.
Well, and the thing that with her, which anybody who has worked at Cal, so like this was something back when Conzo Martin was our head men's basketball coach. He had been at Cal.
Mhm.
And the thing to remember about Cal is that it is a prestigious academic institution, and it is hard as hell to recruit people to that school and have them get into school there.
Yeah.
So it would probably be so easy, like after recruiting at a school like Cal, to come to Mizzou and like, not that, but Mizzou is not Cal.
I just want everyone to do an exercise. Look up the acceptance rate of Cal and Mizzou, and you'll get what we're talking about.
Right. It is not an easy school.
Mizzou has bad institutions, but Berkeley is Berkeley. Other coaches who got mentioned is Kelly Harper, who is, of course, current TV analyst and Karen's ride or die. I mean, she's been thrown around since literally day one of the search, even as soon as she got fired from Tennessee last year. So got all the experience in the world. It's all really another matter of paycheck. And then the final one is someone who's grown on me a lot since I started the search was J.C. Hoyt from Oklahoma State. Has really turned that program around in a hurry, and they were very close to advancing and almost winning the Big 12 championship this year. I believe they're probably going into the tournament as a 6th seed. Hoyt previously spent time at Kansas State when Veach was there, then moved on to head coach at Kansas City /UMK.
That's a good thing to bring up. I had forgotten about how there is a connection between her and Veach as well.
So I think that's the list of candidates that I've heard that have been reached out to.
Yeah.
You have to think that, again, there's probably a couple other high-level mid-major coaches that are at least on the radar, but at least for now, where we stand on March 11th at roughly 7:45 p.m., these are your list of candidates that I've heard from one source or another that Mizzou is exploring.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our girl Carly also has not been mentioned. Though she hasn't mentioned, I think there's a Minnesota opening, and I saw her name thrown out.
I know it's in Wisconsin. I don't know about
Oh, Wisconsin. That's what it was. Yeah. I saw her name thrown out for that. Yeah, so the thing that I think is really cool about this, like the names that we're hearing, clearly it wasn't just AD speak when Laird said they're going to spend some money and they care. Like, because these are all like, Kelly Harper's not a sitting head coach, but Kelly Harper, came from Tennessee. She's going to require some good money to,
ESPN pays a lot.
You're going to have to give her a bag, especially because she is currently doing analyst duties for ESPN. So she'd she need to get some money in order to get back into it. But these other candidates are all sitting head coaches. Like, you're going to have to, and some, throw them some money, especially like to get them out of their contracts and stuff like that. So we're not talking about low major coaches or like Sophie Cunningham and Lindsay, the Cunningham sisters becoming the next coaches of Mizzou basketball, or Haley Troop being the next Mizzou basketball coach, or any of Mizzou's current assistants becoming the next head coach of Mizzou basketball. Like, they really seem like they are focused on making this program matter and growing it going forward, which I think it just makes me happy.
Primarily, it looks like they're looking, at least immediate circle is current sitting head coaches who have some level of high major experience and are working or have worked in the Midwest, and specifically in states neighboring Missouri. These are not, of course, catch-all be-alls, but this is kind of where, if I'm looking at common trends, that's kind of where we're looking at.
Even though he did say it didn't matter if they had connections to Missouri specifically.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, I also think it's just smart of each. Like, of course, Jeff Mitty and JC Hoyt are two of the better candidates in the search, and he already knows them.
He already knows them. I do think that means something. I have my heart set on it being a women coach.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against Jeff Mitty. I mean, I know he's done a great job at Kansas State. I just like the idea of another woman coach.
I will also say Jeff is a little bit older too. He is 58 right now, which isn't a deal breaker. I mean, there are coaches who go well into their 70s, but if you want someone to be the face of Mizzou basketball, for someone who's in it for the long haul, you're talking not only 5 to 10, but 10 to 15 years in another situation with Robin. Maybe you don't want to be bringing up someone who's almost about to hit 60. So,
well, and he did say in the press conference too that he was looking for like a relationship builder and someone who could relate to the players and their staff and the town. And I just feel like that's probably more geared towards someone a little bit younger as well. Do you know how old JC Hoyt is?
She's on the younger side. I know that for sure. According to Google, 37 years old. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's younger. Molly's 38, I think.
I think everyone else.
She looks about 22.
Everyone else on this list is somewhere between 30s to maybe young 50s, mostly 40s.
Okay.
So Jeff is really.
So he would be on the older.
I think of everyone that we mentioned, Jeff is the only one above 50. I'm just checking.
Charmin's 49.
Charmin's 49 and Beth is 49. Beth Cunningham is 49 as well.
Okay.
So I think he is the only one above 50, barely. But if you're looking for your young head coaches, that's more towards your Molly Miller or your JC Points.
Robin is 56.
Mm-hmm. So that means she was 41 when she was hired, or 40, somewhere around there. So again, imagine if you think about 15 years of Robin. She's actually younger than Jeff, which is a little crazy, but
yeah, interesting.
I don't think it's an older head coach is a deal breaker by any means. Jeff knows his stuff.
Well, and we're not talking about somebody who's, like 70.
But if you want this person to be in the program forever and someone who's less likely to retire after 5 to 10 years, you're definitely going to want to look at someone who is on the younger side. So,
yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if we hear anything. I mean, I know that we've been getting most of our information. The Athletic did something, put out a piece today or yesterday that basically had all those people mentioned. I've been looking at On3. I'd been looking at the women's basketball version of Trilly Donovan, Skim Milky for some sources. No, not Kim Mulkey, not affiliated with Kim Mulkey. But they've had some good insider information in there, so it'll be interesting. I know that you are, what we'll wrap up with here is that you're going to try to talk to the lone women's basketball commit. Why am I blanking on her name?
Nikki Kirstein or Kirstein.
That's right.
I'm going to say Kirstein for now. Like I said, I've got a busy week ahead, so it looks like we're going to touch base on Sunday. So
nice. Good. Maybe initial contact.
Yes.
Way to go.
We will get a chance to talk to Nikki's thoughts, because everything that I've heard from her so far is that she appears to be totally committed to Mizzou, and the coaching change hasn't been a deal breaker for her. So it's going to be a little bit of an exploration onto her basketball journey, why she's chosen Mizzou, and what she's looking for in a new head coach, and things like that, her perspective.
Awesome. That sounds great. I'm really looking forward to that. So I guess this is our shortest episode, and look at how far we got with just the two of us. So thank you everybody for joining us. Hopefully we'll have some good news to report on next week. Probably not on baseball. Softball, I imagine, should be a bit of some happier updates. Gymnastics is always going to be a happy update for me. I'm only using Taylor Swift's lyrics for good things now for gymnastics. And wrestling's done for the time being anyway, so we won't have to worry about that. But we will be adding in some updates from Abigail for track as they get set for NCAAs, and Rory will have some updates about swimming. Even though they haven't hit the pool, there are some people going to women's national championships, and diving Zone D diving meet to qualify for NCAAs is taking place right now, and Mizzou has gotten at least a couple of people in there. So she will have an update about that, as well as tennis and golf. So that is all from here. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the nice weather if you're in Columbia. MIZ.
ZOU.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.